It's about that time.
Good. Hello, everyone. Thank you being here. It's really a pleasure today to have someone that I appreciate a lot and respect a lot, and had the chance also to do some working together with him. And it's just the beginning, hopefully. So, Daniel Friedman, welcome, sir.
Thanks for having me, Yoram. Great to be here. Looking forward to talking a little bit or a lot of bit, as long as we need a bit about different things, Cardano and what we're doing and whatnot.
Perfect. So I started this kind of interviews or podcast. It's not my comfort zone. I normally work a lot behind the scenes, but I wanted to start showing the teams that are working on enterprise adoption in Cardano, and show where they are, the work they are doing, the processes to onboard enterprises. And I feel it's really important. In addition to the DeFi and infrastructure for DeFi and all the DeFi world, I think Cardano attracted a lot of people that came here and a lot of builders because of the initial promise, and what Charles was speaking a lot in the beginning, which is basically creating a new economic system for the world, a new banking system, and basically using this technology to change the world. And I think where we are today, like any new technology, there is a process to kind of create the technology and make it ready. And you started 8-9 years ago with closely with Charles. We'll speak about it in a minute. And then we started with the protocol, infrastructure, technology tooling. Together now, what we see with the legal compliance and all of, and together with that, and the technology, I think today is ready and getting ready to enterprise adoption, and we are getting into this phase. So we all started a couple of years ago, but I think this phase is going to accelerate now. This is why I think it's important to showcase the work so many great teams are doing. And yeah, now the focus move for you. So it really would be great if you do, quick, how did you start in Cardano? It's always exciting to hear how did you start. And actually for me, now you are working on something that is kind of the initial promise of why Cardano started. So back to you, sir.
Yeah, well, yeah, thanks. Thanks for having me. And well, my work in Cardano started around when the idea of Cardano started. If that makes sense. Some of you know exactly what I'm talking about. Some of you don't. But I started working with Charles and Input Output in 2016. So early 2016, I joined the Input Output team. At that point, it was only a few people, including Charles. And so this was only a few months after the whole the whole thing with the napkin at Royal Host, where Cardano was drawn up. Again, some of you might know the story, some of you might not. So according to Fable, Charles drew up the initial whiteboard for Cardano on a napkin at Royal Host in Osaka, where I live. Even though it might not look like Osaka behind me because of the American flag and not enough Japanese stuff, I actually am in Japan. I promise you, I get Japanese bills. See, look, it's all in Japanese. Tells me where to go. Anyway. And so I started working with the team. At that point, most of the team was actually here in Osaka, and so I was managing the pre-sale, the Cardano pre-sale app. So I was, I guess, the first project manager in at Input Output, and what we did was we developed the app, the web app that handled the entire Cardano pre-sale. So everything from from individual holders to the actual pre-sale mechanics and all the different things. KYC, all this stuff was handled through the pre-sale app. It was a huge application, actually. So after that was done, and after Cardano was launched in 2017, So about a year and a half or so after I started working with Charles, I started getting more into business development, the business development side of Cardano, because really that really is what excited me about it. The prospects, the possibilities. Even though I come from a technology background, I was a developer for 20 years and worked in various different capacities. I worked as just a regular developer a long time ago and advanced to systems architect to CTO. Actually, I was a CTO of a company before. But yeah, I kind of switched gears a little bit, although the tech background really helps when you do this kind of work, when you do this kind of business development. I shifted gears to business development because so many opportunities were just coming our way. And so I ended up actually at first really being the guy that Charles sent all these business dealings to. So that gave me a lot of opportunities to work with various different people that were interested in various different sectors that were interested in Cardano. And so the one that really kind of, that really spoke to me was always just dealing with what we call the commodity sector. And I'm not talking about just trading commodities, but everything that's to do with commodities, agriculture, the trading components between, starting from the producer side and ending at your plate or cup or whatever else. And that's because a lot of the countries that were really, I thought could really benefit from Cardano were developing economies that were under digitized and just really needed a way to leapfrog. And so this technology was really great for leapfrogging in these countries and really helping these countries. And a lot of these countries rely on agriculture and commodities, different commodities. So that's how I got into the whole business development and really kind of started, branching out into different sectors of Cardano. And then this grew. I was with the company, I believe, for 7 or 8 years. I can't remember, but quite a while. And about 3.5 years ago, almost 4, I started Zengate Global, which is basically kind of the spiritual successor of what really drove me, what really kind of inspired me with my work in Cardano, and that is to work with on the ground, right? This work on the ground with producers, with the people that could really benefit from the technology. And so that's how I continue it on. And this is what we're doing right now. We basically created a traceability application called Palmyra Pro that focuses on basically just across the board transparency and value chain digitization that has to do with and this digitization has to do with the agricultural sector quite a bit, and the mining and mineral sector as well as other parts of the industry where traceability is important, and it is very important. And so also it's coupled with tokenization in some instances. In some instances, it's coupled with data transfer and data custody. So various different applications, and so it just felt like that's where the impact was to be made. And so this is why we at Zengate undertook this path.
Yeah, it's amazing. I don't know if people understand how big it is. I mean, this sector. I mean, it's first of all, if we speak about decentralization, there is around 600 million small farm holders in the world that represent, over a billion and a half people that work still, as you said, in a very inefficient way today, with lack of transparency, with lack of resources. There's kind of a very old trading, a lot of intermediates. So that I'm also passionate about this area. And actually what brought me to blockchain is that I was working with a big NGO, volunteering for a couple of years that worked with 100 multinationals, but also on the ground. and so Nestle, Mars from one side, but a lot on the ground. And I saw the inefficiencies in this market. And I said, okay, to change that, you definitely need technology. And when I started to look into Cardano and the promise of Cardano and blockchain, kind of my mind was blown away about the opportunity. But I feel it was 6 years ago when I started to come to Cardano, it was a little bit early in terms of the technology and capability of the technology. And I think now we are getting there. And maybe if we speak about the opportunity for Cardano to onboard enterprises in this world, I mean, there's so many, if you think about it, almost any product we have today comes either from origin from a mine, right, or energy, or food, right, or commodities. So how do you look on that in terms of the enterprise adoption opportunities, or even a bigger question there? I mean, what's the focus areas there, because it's so wide, it touches so many companies and enterprises.
Well, yeah, I mean, really, with transparency and traceability technologies, what you always are focused on is, I guess, it's data transparency and data availability upstream. So you got somebody downstream, like say a brand or a conglomerate that deals with satellite vendors or whatnot. You have, say, a importer that deals with various different cooperatives, farms that basically have to have a data stream that is consistent and that is robust enough for them to be able to get a consistent quality, because that's really what it's about. It's about consistency, and it's about consistent volume, consistency in quality, and consistency in risk aversion, which is what it's all about. And so this technology is really about that. And so this matters to large conglomerates, because a lot of these large conglomerates, even if the bigger they are, the more fragmentation they have. Like, for example, I'll give you an example. In the mining industry, you have we deal with the mining industry in Latin America, and specifically in Argentina, although not only Argentina, but a lot of it is in Argentina. And there's quite a bit of gold mining going on there, as well as others like lithium, for example. But what happens is, a lot of times the big companies that come there to mine are actually US based or Canada based. And so what they do is they work with the smaller mines down in Argentina and boutique mines, and so they kind of incorporate them into their structure, and then they put them into their value chain. The problem with that a lot of times is the data format and data flow inconsistencies. And so, in layman's terms, controlling, making sure that the quality and consistency of information and product and quality that flows up to you, that flows up to the conglomerate in the US, that basically is the one that's selling the gold that's been mined, is consistent, right? So you have to fill a lot of gaps. There's a lot of times there's under digitization happening in these, in these smaller, the smaller mines, or the boutique mines, or the satellite, satellite operations. And so what we do is we create a consistent flow. So with traceability, you create this consistent flow of data that goes up, and so a large conglomerate highly benefits from that. So multinationals highly benefit from things like this. And this is a common problem with multinationals. It's a common problem with commodities brokers, a common problem with brands. It's a common problem with, we're speaking to a Fortune 500 company right now that literally has the same problem. They're dealing with satellite operators that have various different consistencies in data that do not report what needs to be reported to the system that they use internally. So what we do is we tie it all together. And so that's what Cardano can do. And that's what Cardano will do, is tie it all together. And that's how you bring these guys on board. You basically give them a unified, a vision of unification of their resources and transparency across the entire value chain.
Perfect. I call it maybe potentially a trust layer of information, right? That will be on chain and that can be across the supply chain. That's really, and I want to give three, just to point this out, three key relevant, where it's so much relevant what you are doing. One is with the something called EUDR compliance, which is the compliance for forest conservation, which is a legal compliance in Europe that is coming into play. So every commodity or product coming into the market have to have this compliance, and you are working on that in Nigeria now with cocoa producer, which is a huge issue. I mean, we all love chocolate and we eat it all over, but there is a huge issue of compliance and transparency.
In Switzerland, you kidding me? Switzerland knows chocolate, really?
Somehow, yeah. So a lot of the producers are here, and or the buyers are here, and so that's one. And if we speak about one of them, so Nestle, if you look on the financial statement of Nestle, you will find 50% of the financial statement speaks about impact they are doing and so on, but how they actually verify that, right? How you actually know what they're saying is actually happened and true. And I can tell you there are probably some gaps there to fill up, or at least lack of, we want to give confidence that what they say is true. And the third, I mean, we had together a call with a company that sells 150 million of sales of product of food to Carrefour and so on in Europe, and they basically use almost zero technology. So I believe if they are starting to use this compliance and traceability, they will have actually a competitive advantage when they go to market, and we can actually tell consumers, okay, this is verified products. And I believe consumer will make their choices there also. So yeah, just want to say what you do is extremely important. What would be the process for you to onboard enterprises? And I mean, we now in Cardano, first of all, we are getting into a process where we are ready to in terms of technology. So the process of onboarding companies like that, how much time it takes, what's your best approach to onboard companies like that? I think it's something very interesting. Because I know the challenges, at least from my side, when I'm talking with enterprises and the opportunities.
Well, so I was speaking about this actually recently, and I mean, if you strip it all down, if you just get down to the bare bones of what Cardano is, just like any blockchain, it is infrastructure for solutions. Whether it's good infrastructure for solutions, that depends on the chain, obviously. To you and me, Cardano is that chain that is that infrastructure for solutions that we need to be able to, that we trust, whose mission we trust, whose first principles we trust, who we believe is the right infrastructure for the solutions that we want to produce and create on it. But really what that also means is that it's not a solution by itself, right? Not in a product sense where that is delivered to the end user that you want to onboard there. So what needs to happen in between is obviously usage and building that utilizes the chain for these things. Now, a lot of times with blockchains, and Cardano as well, a lot of people who are really passionate about the ecosystem and the chain, they sometimes neglect the fact that we are a minority, and in a way, we will always be a minority of people that really understand all the caveats of it. Now, that doesn't mean that the chain is not going to get not going to get mass adoption. But for mass adoption, you just have to understand that for mass adoption of any technology, you have to put user first and what's under the hood second. And what that means is it's not about deprioritizing quality under the hood. It means that you abstract what's under the hood from the user if you want to reach a wider user group. So what does that mean? Well, that means that the average user of Cardano, if we are to get to 100 million or 1 billion users or whatever we want to get to, you can't expect 100 million people to understand, how EUTXO works. You just can't. It's not possible. It's people just don't like some. There's not enough of those people will think that way, and they don't have to think that way. What you have to produce is solutions that will utilize the chain in a meaningful way, but a solution that is meaningful to the user. And so that is how you onboard these users, and that's how you onboard the big conglomerates. That's how you onboard basically anybody on a mass scale. It's because of the solution, because the solution that you create matters to them and solves a real problem that they're having in their daily lives or in their work or in their business. And what's under the hood should not matter. All that matters is that their lives are made easier, and that solution is what they need, without having to explain, because a solution is something you don't really have to explain. People, they already know the problem. And
this
so,
is
that's why, you don't have to explain what, you go to the store, you don't have to explain what headache medicine does. You go to the store and tell them, I have a migraine, give me medicine. They give you medicine because that's what it does. You know what it does. There's a demand for that. That's how you create a demand. You don't need to know what's in the medicine. Well, I mean, you do, but I'm just saying, you don't have to know how the medicine is made exactly to be able to benefit from taking it. The same thing with blockchain, the same thing with Cardano. And it's up to us to create this bridge between the technology and the solutions infrastructure and the end user that cares about the solution and shouldn't really care about the infrastructure, but the infrastructure is resilient anyway.
Then
so that's how you do
it. Such an extremely important message. I mean, okay, there is the DeFi ecosystem, which is extremely important and necessary, and a lot of people use that DeFi infrastructure and to trade and make money, and really important and need to be there. But parallel to that, we are getting, and that was maybe great for the first 10 years, but we are getting now into, again, the phase of where the technology is ready to take it to market in a way that the consumer will use it without even knowing he's using blockchain. And I really believe that the next 10 years from now, like when we see 10 years from now, everyone will use blockchain without even knowing that they're using blockchain, right? And it will be connected to the DeFi ecosystem. You will still need stable coins and different, transfer of funds, and you would use DeFi infrastructure in a different way than today completely. So 100%, this is a very important message, and I think we are getting into this phase. And so you say that basically to facilitate, to accelerate the process with enterprises, we need to work more on these solutions that are very easy for enterprises to use, making benefit for them without all the hassle kind of using blockchain, of using opening wallets. And
it's almost, and I know it hurts, but it's almost, you have to make blockchain second, solution first. It's up to you as the solution provider to understand the need of a resilient blockchain like Cardano, but you shouldn't have to sell it. You shouldn't have to sell the blockchain. You should sell the solution. If your solution is needed and it has PMF, you don't have it. People are not going to care what chain it's on. The companies that we're speaking to, maybe one actually knows that we're building it on Cardano. The rest just know the solution. The rest just know that this traceability is going to help them make more money. It's going to help them extract more value out of the entire value chain. That's what they know.
And from my experience, actually, when we go to the discussion which blockchain, what technology you're using, we have very compelling arguments why Cardano in this space. And so, but definitely the solution is first. The time is passing fast, and I want to touch a couple of more points which is important. One, I want to speak about ecosystem collaboration around the area. You are trying to tackle such a huge area, and within this area, there's a lot of elements that are needed, right? You mentioned trust layer of information. We mentioned, there is finance, there is insurance, stable coins. All of them are built, oracles, right, of information. So all of them are built on Cardano, and I think I just want to tell people that I enjoy a lot working with you and your team on and how we can create collaborative on the initiative that benefit everyone, right? If we know relevant people, relevant companies and leads, how we connect between what Trivial Tech is doing with Indian chain and agriculture to in finance to compliance and transparency. Work that I'm doing with the satellite Oracle on Cardano with farmers in India, how this connect to Zengate. So yeah, just wanted to mention that point because I think it's extremely important that the collaboration between the people building for enterprises would be extremely beneficial. I don't know if you want to touch a little bit about that.
Yeah, of course, of course. I mean, yeah, and actually, I think you understand that level of collaboration, better than most people that I know. And the thing is, and without sounding cynical or kind of rough, but some projects and companies, not just in Cardano, just in general, have this like entitlement thing. I build this, so why the hell aren't you using this? I mean, don't you understand how elegant the solution is? Well, if I don't understand and I'm your end user, then you didn't build a good solution.
Yeah.
It's like, what do you expect? Oh, yeah, sorry, I'm stupid. Beat me over the head a couple more times with your, with your technical soothsaying, and maybe I'll get it. You can't expect that. So really, it all comes from this understanding of PMF, an understanding of which components plug in where, and creating and basically covering your part of the puzzle in such a meaningful way that it just makes sense to plug you in. For example, USDM, for example, that's, I mean, you could just plug it in. It just works, right? It just works. These guys are just doing a fantastic job, and it just works. We use USDM, with at Zengate for various different things. I mean, it just works. When we think about, okay, stablecoin payments, right away, USDM pops up because we know that we can count on them. I mean, just there's plethora of other companies. I mean, just that's the first one that comes to mind to me, but it doesn't mean that it's the only one. But that's what I'm saying. That is exactly what I'm saying is you have to understand the PMF. You have to be able to collaborate with other companies in the ecosystem that need that PMF. Like, for example, we're talking right now, how can our technology benefit your technology, right? I don't feel entitled, that you have to accept me, right? Yoram, you have to. I mean, how dare you? We built such an elegant traceability ecosystem. How dare you just not accept it right away? Well, that's not how you collaborate. You create a robust solution that is really a great PMF right here. And if Yoram is over here, but you need to fill this gap right here, you go to me, and then you can trust me to give you that solution so that you can cover all of this. And that's just how it's supposed to work. That's how collaboration is supposed to work. And the more projects that do that, I think the better will become as a business ecosystem.
Yeah, and I agree. And then it's easier for us also as if I speak with an enterprise and they need traceability, enterprise related to agriculture, I mean, then obviously, there's cross efforts we can do there, right, between us. And I think that's very, very important, when we look at ecosystem collaboration and enterprise adoption. Dan, I want to take it also to the next step. If we speak about collaboration, so we spoke about the beginning of Cardano in Japan. The Japanese community is extremely important. It was incredible to come and meet the community 6 months ago, 7 months ago, with the tour that was there, and also
Has it been that long? Jeez.
Yeah, I should come. Time flies, and there was another tour now, but I still think there is a gap somehow because of language or communication, and I see it recently on X between the enterprise adoption or the work that is being done in different dApps on Cardano and the Japanese community. So I see it in recently again a lot on X. By different Japanese community members. So yeah, I don't know, just your thought on that, and how can we actually make that stronger? I mean, there is a language gap, but yeah, I think we can overcome that.
I mean,
Uh,
I don't think it's a language barrier. I think it's a cultural barrier, and you have to understand the Japanese culture to really be able to use this to be able to blossom in this market. Um, okay, so the Japanese are traditionally conservative. It's a conservative culture, and so they and conservative culture is naturally risk averse. So if you give them something that sets off risk red flags, which is, if you have this brand new technology and you give it to them, I mean, they'll be interested, but actual adoption of this technology is going to be hard because they're conservative. So they need to know that it's resilient enough and it's been around enough. Because look, you got a society that's been around for thousands of years, literally, right? So for thousands of years, you have to think in that particular mindset. We use things that some of which have been around for thousands of years. So why do you expect me to just jump on this thing that's been around for a couple of years and is so drastically different from anything that I know? Like, for example, you're telling me that I'm supposed to do stuff with my money on this thing. What can I compare it to in my life? Give me the past 100 years. What can I compare it to in my life? And this is why, for example, a lot of the Japanese community, they just stake, right? Why do they stake? It is low risk. It creates a yield, and they don't have to do much. And they understand, okay, you put your money here, interest comes out here, right? Or APY comes out here. That
Simple.
makes sense. That was around. That concept was around, and this is why you can onboard the Japanese community, but you just have to understand that you have to give them certain assurances that will make them see that the risk of participating in, for example, this new DeFi protocol is low enough, or it is manageable, and not just low, but manageable enough for them to take a chance.
No, 100%. Thank you for that kind of sharing that from your experience. I think what I was alluding to before is kind of how can we. I think there's a lot of great teams on Cardano working now on enterprise adoption, for example, which doesn't require any investment from them. Just to stay. We need at this time of the market. We need to stay strong as an ecosystem, keep on building, and focus on what we believe and why we're here. And the market will come back, right? In their time. And at the same time, we need to obviously deliver on the enterprise adoptions and onboard new users. So just have this communication flow in a better way. I feel there a gap, but I understand they don't necessarily need to invest in the project. That I think that we need to kind of have a more supportive, maybe kind of information flow somehow.
The communication gap basically creates a contextual gap. They just don't really have the context to put these things against. And if they don't have context, they're just not going to spend time to try to figure it out, because if it doesn't make sense, it doesn't make sense. So it has to make sense. And like I said, you just have to take the cultural factor in. Japan does not change on a dime. Change takes time in Japan. So if you're going to introduce something new, you have to understand that you have to keep at it, number one. Number two, you have to satisfy the cultural the cultural points that will allow the entry of this solution or this particular concept into the circle, right? So the circle of trust. And then just like with everything, and like I said, doesn't mean that there's not going to be some Japanese people who just will go for it. There's some people like that. But if you want mass adoption from the Japanese community, you have to speak their language. And I'm not talking about Japanese. I'm talking about their cultural a language that is contextually appropriate for the culture. And you have to have, and this is best done with other Japanese people. For example, Yuta. He's
Yeah,
great
great job.
about kind of bridging between that, because he understands both those concepts. He understands the concept of the Japanese traditional cultural thinking, and he also understands what Cardano is all about, and so he understands how to bridge that. And you can see a lot of his kind of thought and what he puts out on X is about risk aversion and really making sense, making very just straightforward sense out of these things. And so that's that matters. The same with there's a lot of Japanese community that's out there. That's
Kudos
like
to
that.
Utah and Sierra and many other people trying to
Yes,
do to
Sarah is
bridge
another
that,
one. Yeah, again.
and all the other friends. Dan, I have a last question for you. Let's just bringing it all together. What's two things? One is the how Zengate Global is going to be enterprise adoption in 2026. Like what do you feel will happen in 2026 with enterprise adoption for you, and how it connect to the 2030 KPIs done by the product committee? Also great work there to give us some kind of objectives to get to. So how do you feel your contribution and work will be in this
one
year?
of the things that I saw on the roadmap is basically a meaningful transactional flow, resilient transactional flow, not just a casino, not just people gambling and playing like a crapshoot, but consistency. And so what will bring that is institutional, and not just institutional, but a corporate adoption of the technology, a large conglomerate adoption of the technology, and that's what we're focused on that right now, as well as the producer and the cooperative. We're like I said, we're speaking to a Fortune 500 company, and we're actually pretty far in the discussions with them about providing them with a solution that's going to be enterprise adoption. We're going to be going after companies like Mars and Nestle to get enterprise adoption, and we have a solution that they need. We have a solution that they need for procurement and for sustainability, which is a lot of these companies actually are putting quite a bit of money into sustainability. Hershey put in hundreds of millions of dollars into sustainability. Sustainable cocoa sourcing. And so that's what Palmyra Pro does. It creates a solution for sustainability. So these are going to be big companies that we're going after, and then not to mention governments. We're going to be working with the Nigerian government. We're going to be working with other governments as well to, again, get mass adoption of our tech, and basically in turn of Cardano, because we use Cardano. And that's just coming this month. This is literally what we're working on right now. So there's quite a bit of exciting stuff happening this year. I think this is really the year that's going to make it or break it for everybody. And I think we're going to make it. There's a lot of builders. There's enough builders in the ecosystem now that understand, builders like you that understand what it takes to get to where we need to be.
Yeah, 100%. And knowing you and the team and your extraordinary team and how hard you work and how passionate you are, I'm sure you're going to make it. And I'm sure other teams, other teams are going to make it. And I think if one of these teams will make it, or two of these teams will make it, I think we'll reach the 230 KPIs, alone, right? If we speak about 1 million active users and 3 billion TVL and 27 million monthly transactions. It's not numbers that cannot be reached through several successful, enterprises adoption processes. In addition to what's happening in DeFi, again, it's great and so on. So I want to thank you a lot for your time, and I could have speak with you for hours, I feel, and there's so many interesting topics to speak more. But just wanted to give a flavor of, why you guys are doing what you are doing, why it's so interesting for Cardano and relevant for Cardano, and really wish you success, and I'm sure you are going to be important for Cardano this year and going forward. So thank you very much for your time, sir. I don't know if final thoughts from your side. Yeah. final words from your side.
Oh, well, just thank you for having me. This year is going to be It's great. This year is going to be great. We're going to do a lot of great things, and yeah, I'm just excited that, like I said, there are enough builders on Cardano now that understand what needs to happen for Cardano to fulfill its potential, and we're going to keep working at it. We're going to keep going at it until where we go above and beyond what can be done with this ecosystem.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Thank you.
Thanks,
Hope
everybody.
we give you some good value. Thank you.